Act 2, folks.
Cosmo Canyon, please.
You talk? The hell kind of magic trick is this?
What's going on, Failroaders? I'm Joshua Thomas, back to talk about some more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I gotta ask, is Cid still gonna be a jerk? I mean, when we first met Cid in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, he seemed like a pretty nice guy.
President and pilot of Bronco Airlines, Cid Highwind. Pleasure having you aboard.
Aside from wanting to charge us for his services, he seemed pretty good. And throughout the rest of Rebirth as well, it didn't seem like he was going to change at all. But I've got hope for Remake Part 3 that we're going to see a more classic Cid. A Cid that is, for lack of a better word, a cuss bucket or a jerk or, dare I say, an asshole. I'm talking about the Cid who cussed like a sailor and who, well, didn't really treat women or even his guests that well, even though he feigned the hospitality. This is a Cid that the party was kind of reluctant to have along, but, well, they had a mutual enemy, so heck, why not? And he had a means of transportation. You see, I think Cid might be practicing what you could consider to be an extreme form of escapism. And we can kind of see this in the characters of Barrett and Red 13. Although their motivations are slightly different, I think they hold the key to understanding how we might see Cid in Remake Part 3. So what do I mean by escapism? Well, escapism can be something as simple as sitting back and watching a good movie in order to kind of forget about reality for a little bit and just enjoy yourself and forget about any kind of problems or difficulties you're having in your life. Also, playing a good video game is another form of escapism. But then you can go so far as to, well, move away from your hometown or the place that you're living in order to try to start fresh, to start anew, and to leave your troubles behind. And I think this is possibly what Cid is doing in Rebirth. So let's take a look at Barrett and Red 13 first. When each of them enters their hometown, they go through a change, a very noticeable change. Their personality shifts. With Barrett, he goes from being the hot-headed, brash leader of the Avalanche group to being, well, somber and letting people push him around. The guy who you would expect to just haul off and clock somebody for spilling wine on him now has just accepted it. And it's up to this 16-year-old girl, Yuffie, to try and defend him, and even he stops her. He clearly goes through a character shift upon entering his hometown because he has history here. And it's that history that, quote-unquote, has caught up to him, and he is reverting back to the feelings and emotions and the past that happened to him in this location. When he is here, he cannot escape the fact that he feels the guilt and carries the burden of the fate that befell his hometown and for the loss of his loved ones as well. For Red 13, the shift is a very physical shift and an emotional shift. He goes from being the gruff, older-sounding Red 13 to being Nanaki, the young child who's just so happy to be home. And even Barrett calls him out on this. You see, when Red gets home, he is flooded with the memories of his past, and he's just so excited to be there because he was ripped away from his home by Shinra, and this is his first time returning, and it was his goal all along. He wanted to return to his hometown, and when he gets there, he feels like he can truly be himself. He takes the Red 13 mask off and he becomes Nanaki for the first time. And it's very shocking to the player as well to hear his true voice for the first time. So we get to see Red 13 and Barrett in Rebirth, but there's something that happens that's out of order in Rebirth, and that's that we completely skip Rocket Town. Now, I'm sure the devs have their reasons for doing this. I think one of the big ones is that Rebirth was already a big game as it was, and to introduce Cid and his history so late in the game would have just expanded it even more, so they decided to move it to Part 3. And yes, I do believe we are going to go to Rocket Town in Part 3 and very, very early on, quite possibly the first or second chapter of the game. And when we get there, Cid, just like Barrett and Red 13, is going to go through a character shift. I can't promise he's going to be the cussing like a sailor Cid who smokes a cigarette, puts his feet on the table, and yells at Cheryl to get everybody a glass of tea. It's hard to say how far they will go with Cid due to the new restrictions they have, and I'm sure that they're going to want to have a teen rating. So will he cuss like he used to? Maybe, maybe not, but I do believe he's going to be a very salty person filled with piss and vinegar. And we're going to see his mood change when he sees the rocket in Rocket Town listing over to one side, and when he runs into Cheryl, who is the person who thwarted him from being able to be the first man in space. Yes, we are going to get angry Cid, and we're going to see his darker side, and it's going to be great. Now, once again, this is just my theory, and the devs could go in a completely different direction. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the character that Cid was in Rebirth, but I get the feeling that we are going to get a lot more complexity from him in Part 3, and I know that a lot of the OG players want to see that, including myself. Let me know what you guys think about Cid in Rebirth, and what you think Cid will do in Part 3 of the Remake trilogy. Hope you guys will like and subscribe, check out more on the FailroadExpress, become a member. It's a way that you can help us fund ourselves and get better games and better equipment and that kind of thing. And, of course, check out more of our Final Fantasy VII videos on the FailroadExpress. Check you guys next time.